Hello, welcome to Bastions and Basilisks. I did it right this time. I'm Kalvin,
I'm Brandon.
and today we're talking about Forge Domain. Hopefully, we don't forge get what we're talking about. I had to
Forge
think
you.
that. Oh, do what now?
The forge you. Uh,
Poor Tim or Jim, Jimothy. Um,
did it change?
what I don't remember.
Tim.
I think it's Tim.
It is Tim.
Sorry, Tim. I forgot your name. God, my nose. Anytime I talk, my nose gets all itchy. All right, Forge Domain Cleric. That is Xanathar's guide to everything and your mom. First level domain spells. Identify, Searing Smite. Identify is a good spell. I like Identify. Searing Smite is probably all right. Third level, arguably one of the best second level spells in D&D. Heat Metal. If you don't know anything about Heat Metal, look it up. And just think about somebody wearing metal armor. Magic weapon. Fifth level, elemental weapon, protects from energy. Seventh level, fabricate, wall of fire. Ninth level, animate objects, creation. All right, bonus proficiencies. When you choose this domain at first level, you gain proficiency with heavy armor and smith's tools, which heavy armor is great if you have the strength for it, especially because some of the domains in the player's handbook give you heavy armor proficiency as well. So if you have the proficiency, instead of taking medium armor with your starting package, you can take heavy armor. So if you have the strength and the proficiency, you could start with heavy armor as a cleric, which is pretty good. You just have to have, strength as your second highest stat.
It is true.
All right. And Smith's Tools. Smith's Tools isn't the best proficiency, but it's thematic to this domain. So that is a check A+ for me. Heavy armor always good. Smith's Tools always good.
Yeah,
because like I said, it's thematic. It fits the domain idea. So even if it's the most useless proficiency or something, if it thematically fits, I'll be like, okay. I think if it's like, oh, you get proficiency in stealth, it's like, okay, that's probably not super useful as a cleric, but actually the shadow domain might get stealth. That would be funny. But you get it. It fits with its theme, fits the theme of the domain. So I'm not like, that's stupid, it doesn't belong here. It belongs. It does. It's kind of not the greatest thing to get, but at least it belongs. And it's better than just getting just a weapon proficiency and nothing else. Blessing of the Forge. At first level, you gain the ability to imbue magic into a weapon or armor. At the end of a long rest, you can touch one non-magical object that is a suit of armor or simple or martial weapon. Oh, that is a suit of armor or simple or martial weapon. Until there should be a comma in there somewhere, I think. Until the end of your next long rest or until you die, whichever happens first. The object becomes a magic item, granting a +1 bonus to AC if it's armor, or +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls if it's a weapon. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Arguably not as strong as Arcana first level or Death first level. However, like making it magical, like you at first level you have +1 whatever armor, scale mail, or a +1 great sword, or your fight, and it's not even just you. It doesn't say that you have to pick the item. It's you touch it. So if you're like, at first level, I'll give our monk,
+1 clothes or +1,
or our wizard, like, or whatever. Although it has to be armor, and technically, so if it doesn't belong to armor, so it can't just touch like its robes. But hey, not first level, you can give the fighter a +1 weapon, and your fighter theoretically, if you're built well, you have an 18 strength and got a two-handed weapon, and you're swinging, and so it's not as super powerful at first level, but it's a free +1. So
yes, it's useful at first level.
At second level, when the fighter can make an extra swing on occasion, or fifth level,
in the event of first level, and you come across anything that has the resistance or immunity to damage that isn't magical,
right? I highly doubt you're going to find anything at that lower level, but yeah.
You'd be surprised, but
or
actually no.
Or because you brought that up, I'll do you one better. Some people play no magic item games at D&D. The game is supposed to be built on the concept that you don't need magic items, so you can play it without getting magic items. No magic items, which makes your money useless. Like, cool, I have 70,000 gold pieces that I can spend on fuck all. But it's a solid ability, especially because you have a magic weapon, or I don't know. It's maybe not as good as what artificers can do, although I think theirs are second level, but it's a good ability. So I know. So I like Blessing of the Forge. Once again,
I think it's good.
Fits thematically, and is also really useful, which is the best.
Getting a +1 to AC, a +1 to a bonus attack and damage roll is always going to be useful. Solid, like you said, not as good as Archon and Death, and I agree with that 100%, but still thematically useful and thematically great.
Yeah. So, and plus a +1 to hit or a +1 AC. I've been playing this game long enough. Maybe you haven't long enough, but a difference of 1 is literally the biggest difference. One additional armor class means that you don't get hit. Like, the amount of enemies that I have fought and hit, and they have gotten down to exactly 1 hit point.
Yeah, and that extra round they survive could mean the death of your party. I've had it.
Or you're using a bunch of more resources, or whatever. It's so many things. So an additional 1 to hit and damage, or +1 to your AC, that's good. It's solid. Channel Divinity, Artisan's Blessing. Starting at second level, you can use your Channel Divinity to create simple items. You conduct an hour-long ritual that crafts a non-magical item that must include some metal, a simple or martial weapon, a suit of armor, 10 pieces of ammunition, a set of tools, or another metal object. This creation is completed at the end of the hour, coalescing in an unoccupied space of your choice on a surface within 5 feet of you. The thing you create can be something that is worth no more than 100 gold pieces. As part of this ritual, you must lay out metal, which can include coins with a value equal to the creation. The metal irretrievably coalesces and transforms into the creation at the ritual's end, magically forming even non-metal parts of the creation. The ritual can create a duplicate of a non-magical item that contains metal, such as a key, if you possess the original during the ritual. So, if you want to copy a key, like that, they give you. I like that they give you an example. So if you want to copy a key to, if you're thieves, you copy a key. Now you have the key. You can put the normal key back. You want to copy a sword. It's still not magical, although you could make it magical with Blessing of the Forge. So if you could do one of those things that, if it's this specific sword, you can make it.
I'm just imagining how broken you could do this. Like, you go find a random weapon, copy it, and then you add Blessing of the Forge to it, and then sell it as if it's a magical weapon. Just go around conning people.
Right. Right. I was thinking more like Resident Evil Puzzle, where it has to be a specific shape, so you turn it into a specific shape, and it doesn't even have to be a weapon. It's like,
could be.
You're like, how so many things are like, using Resident Evil. It's like, oh, you have to get this thing to fit in this hole, and you're like, well, I know what the shape is, so you could just get just a bunch of metal, spend the hour just finagling it, and you're like, cool, click. Now I have the gear that opens all the doors. Like this is might not seem useful. It's as useful as you can make it, and
Yeah,
it's just limited by how much
you can think of.
gold. Um, I mean, arguably, you could be like, oh, well, this thing is technically priceless, or this thing is worth 5,000 golds. You can't recreate. Like, I'm creating a replica of it. I'm not creating the actual item. So,
Yeah.
so it's just that you're like, I am creating this gear thing out of whatever. It just can't cost more than. So essentially, you can't make full plate armor for
Yeah.
as a ritual. Um, but with this, you can make. I think you can make a great sword. So you can craft a great sword. Um, and it doesn't say that it only lasts. And so you're during you can spend an hour to create anything really, as long as it's less than a gold 100 gold pieces or less. So the the fighter lost their great sword. Give me a minute.
Cool.
Some armor is worth less than that. So it's like I said, it's really, this is as
It's
creative as you can make it, as creative as you can be as a player. It's how useful this can be, and so it could be really useful or
yeah.
next to useless.
Another one of the it is only as good as you make it.
Right. But it'll be one of those things that you're like, I don't know what we're doing, guys. And then just the cleric's like, Artisan's Blessing! Guys, holy shit. Like, yeah. So I like it.
And the DM's just like you don't have a forge to work with.
And it does say, it creates a duplicate of a non magical item that contains metal. Soul of the Forge. Starting at 6th level, your mastery of the Forge grants you special abilities. You gain resistance to fire damage. While wearing heavy armor, you gain a +1 bonus to AC.
I think honestly that's you gain resistance.
Right.
Really, like ignoring resistance is great. Gaining resistance is also great. And then getting just free AC while even though it's specifically for heavy armor, fucking +1 AC, dude, is great.
We're talking about my favoriteest module, but playing this going into Descent into Avernus.
So
Once you
your
get
Age of
into
Warlocks, Descent into Avernus, which one's higher?
I think it's Descent into Avernus.
Wow.
Yeah. I really hate Descent into Avernus. It's just such a garbage module.
Good to know.
Yeah, and comment if you like it, so I can tell you about how stupid you are. Um, I bet you also like Warlocks. Um, I could go on a whole tangent about. I have many times about how much I hate Descent into Avernus,
I
possibly
think
on this channel,
I'm pretty
in videos. Yeah. Um, anyway, so playing this in Descent into Avernus is really good because at 6th level you have fire resistance. Hellhounds do fire damage. A lot of devils, I think, do fire damage. So you're resistant to, and you have a +1 weapon. So you're like, sup, fuckers.
that resistance to non-magical attacks really goes out that window.
Exactly. You're like, boom, I hit you. Now you're a threat. And they try to hit you. You're like, hey, I have a really good armor class because I'm wearing heavy armor.
Plus
And,
one.
and I have resistance to fire damage.
As long as
So,
you're not a tiefling that is specific to
right.
or
Unless you already have resistance to fire damage.
yeah,
Then
which
it's wasted. Although technically, once you get to 18, once you get to 17, it's better anyway. But once again, not the strongest ability, but thematically,
it
it
makes
fits.
sense.
Which I'm perfectly I'm perfectly okay with. I'm fine with something thematically fitting a build, even if I'm like, this is not like, it doesn't compare to
Much
other
like how we did
abilities sometimes.
much like the barbarians, where a lot of them were just like, all right, it fits it thematically. It's not
Right.
necessarily the
Right,
the
exactly.
utility.
Like level 10 totem barbarians getting, the speak with animals ritual or whatever. You're like, that's kind of useless on a barbarian, but thematically it fits. So I'm not mad. It's just it's good. It makes sense why you added it. So it's the same kind of thing. It's just you're not just throwing shit at the wall and hoping for the best. Plus, I mean, like I said, fire is the most common damage type, elemental damage type. So you're gonna get use out of the resistance, and then later
100.
immunity, and then while wearing heavy armor, like you have the proficiency. You're gonna be wearing the heavy armor that you can make magic. So you can have if you have full plate, you get full plate by 6th level. You have +1 full plate that gives you another +1. You can have a shield. Like you're suddenly very tanky, and that's assuming that you don't already have magical like a magical shield or magical armor or whatever. But um, solid Solar Forge is solid. Divine Strike, like all the rest, at 8th level, you gain the ability to infuse your weapon strikes with fiery power of the Forge. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you cause the attack to deal an extra 1d8 fire damage to the target. When you reach 14th level, the extra damage increases to 2d8. This would be less useful in Avernus, but it's a choice. You don't have to do the damage. And if you fight something that's not immune to fire damage or resistant to, although if as long as they are not healed by fire damage, which I don't think anything is healed by fire damage, but I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, get in the comments. Um, trying to get engagement, Brandon. I'm doing my best. Um, possibly,
I agree with the
possibly
choice.
doing half of whatever the D8 damage of fire damage. Like it's still an additional. Even if you roll a 1, you can't round below 1, so you're still doing 1 additional point of damage to something. Like there's
Which
no
goes back
negatives.
comment of 1 being a very important number within damage.
Exactly, exactly. It's also the loneliest number. But it's a solid, yeah. It's like, but Divine Strike, okay. Divine Strike and Potent Spellcasting are solid abilities. That's all we have to say across all of the domains because we have this is our 3rd one. We have 11 more to go. They're always good. That's all I'm going to say. I'll just say Divine Strike. Going forward, I'll say Divine Strike and the elemental that it does, and then that'll be it. Because now our statement is, is canonically the stance is that Divine Strike and or Potent Spellcasting are really good abilities.
Yes.
We love them. I'm not going to just beat a dead horse and explain all of them every single time. And then at 17th level, Saint of Forge and Fire. At 17th level, your blessed affinity with fire and metal becomes more powerful. You gain immunity to fire damage. So good. Because now the wizard can drop fireballs on you. Immunity to any type of elemental, immunity to any damage is good, but immunity to the most common damage type, elemental damage type, chef's kiss.
Yes.
While wearing heavy armor, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks.
Although it's at 17th level, which late, gaining immunity and then having resistance to the most common of weapon attacks damages, like absolutely.
Right.
That
Immunity always good. 10 out of 10 immunity, especially fire damage. It would be useful if it's any type of damage because it's one of those things. Like I think psychic might be more useful, but that's just because the things that do psychic damage, you're like, hey, fucker, no psychic damage from you. You're like, if they take damage, like, no, I didn't take any damage. You can't stun me. I didn't take any psychic damage. And then having resistance to bludgeoning period, like, yeah, it says from non-magical attacks, but as long as you're fighting things that don't have magical attacks, so as long as they don't have magical weapons or magical natural weapons or whatever, you're up there in the melee doing stuff, and you're like, sup, fuckers. Plus, you also have a 1 higher armor class because you're wearing heavy armor from Soul of the Forge. So it's, like I said, this. I don't want to rank any of them yet.
Yeah, it's way too early for that personally, but
this I like this one thus far. I like this one the most because I like thematically all of the abilities it gets. Death was really good for the most part. Arcana was really good for the most part. This one thematically is the best. and then all of its
Person,
abilities are really good.
I was going to say, personally, out of the thematics that it gives and the utility, I don't think anything is wasted. Like it's not like even for its most mediocre ability, it still is useful
Yeah,
in many.
Artisan's Blessing, like we've already said, is as useful as you make it.
Yeah,
So
so I agree with you. I would put Forge out of the three that we have at the top. I do agree with that because immunity to fire and resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. I don't think I can name any of the class of subclasses that give you immunity to something yet other than this one.
I think there might be sorcerer subclass, like their the storm sorcerer might give you resistance and then immunity. I think there are a couple. It's not common, which makes it even more potent. Um, that makes it even more effective because of how uncommon it is for you to have something that does this. Um, but no, it's yeah. I like. I haven't yet played a Forge Domain cleric. Um,
I'm not going to lie, reading it sounds a lot better than my first glance, which was I wouldn't even touch this because
but
I've read Xanthos like once.
mostly because if I'm gonna play a character that wants to be a craftsman, I'll just be an artificer, and there's no way doing a disservice to clerics. But if you're playing in a game where you have people who want to, like, if you have a themed game where people are themed as, you're a bunch of craftsmen, I'll be the artificer, that's the arcane, and then somebody, you could be the forge domain, then we got some divine, and then like
It's
it
great.
type of, and then get the rune lord or the rune master or whatever the hell it is fighter, and then then we just have some other kind of dexterous type class that does crafting, and then like we got the we got
I really do think this is a solid class,
oh
or a
yeah,
solid
it's
sub.
yeah
Out of the
it's
ones that we have gone through in total, I definitely would put this in one that I want to try in the future.
yeah it's for sure like first place currently. I don't see it getting out of like the top 3 to 5 probably because I think there's a lot of good ones. Like life domain is really good, but it's very specific in the build you're going for. Um, I mean, we'll get to that one, but so this one, you know, yeah, I just really like it. So
I also really enjoy this. Definitely something I would recommend to
yeah,
people in general. And the good thing is that with this is one of the relatively easier subclasses that I could show a new player
right.
because
Because
it's a lot of stuff you
there's
don't
yeah
have to track.
yeah the only stuff and it actually would be great for a new player because a lot of new players, unlike me, don't have that whole kind of more rigid mindset from playing for so long. New players are a lot more open and creative. So they're going to be like, oh, I have Artisan's Blessing. What if I did this with it? And we're like, oh, fuck, that's a good idea. I never would have thought of that. I was actually talking to my group because my friend was running, my friend Scott, the game that I had the Musator in with Cankles. I think I'm a great player. I think I'm intelligent. And then she, like one of the people in the game, she's at the time, because this was like 10 years ago, 11 years ago, she was a complete noob. But she had like this great idea. And I was jealous because I was like, great, now I'm being at like, she's already better at the game than I am, type of thing, because she's more creative. And like, it's one of those things that like realize that my mindset is a little too rigid, but like, she's a new player, so she's not much more malleable in ideas. And so that's kind of the thing that if you have somebody who has good ideas, Artisan's Blessing was so good. Well, could break a game, honestly, and
I could definitely see this doing that.
100% could break a game more than an enchantment wizard, more than the most useless class to ever exist. Um, more than anything, like it's so because and it's not like, oh, you killed the boss. It's because I guarantee looking at you, camera. I guarantee you play this in a game, the GM will have the most minuscule thing that you have to go on this long, arduous journey for. And you're like, but what if I just use this ability? And then now they have to change. Like they're like, well, fuck. Like you like they essentially have to be like you. It doesn't work because it can't work because you're 17 levels too low to go in that door. Type of thing. Like, I'm trying to remember. I want to be like, I think I've been in a scenario where it's one of those things where, like, all right, I see what you could have done to have broken the entire game. I'm glad you decided not to. Let's continue on. Type of thing. Like, it's that situation where you're like, I could do this to create the thing. And if the person is honest, it's if the GM is like gets upset, it's like, no, it doesn't work because it's worth more than like if you didn't write that it had a gold cost, then it has an inconsequential gold cost. You know, if you're like, oh, this specific key that you need or this specific whatever that you need, you know, isn't worth that much, and that's why it's gone unnoticed for forever, and that's why you have to go find it. It's like this whole thing essentially. If they like a bullshit GM is gonna be like, no, it's worth 1,000,000 gold pieces. You can't use it. Like, was it, or are you just lying because we figured out a way to get around your puzzle?
I
And
don't think
honestly,
I've
and
once made it to.
as a player, or as a GM, or even as a player, if I was in your game and I was like this, if you're like, here's this thing, and I go, what if I take this ability, spend an hour, boom, I put it in there, I win, I beat the puzzle. You're like, okay, so here's the thing, you guys have there's like a whole other adventure you guys have to go on. You guys cannot handle what's in there.
Just be honest.
Just be honest. Be like, yes, that was a great idea. I can't let you in this door though.
If
And as a player, if I was like, ha, and I figured out your puzzle, and you're like, well, shit. You're like, if you were like, if you gave it that, I'd be like, all right, that's fair. But as long as we acknowledge that I'm a fucking genius, like, you're like, yeah,
yeah,
no,
it's like you did really well, but I'm going to warn you. This is one of those moments where it's
like
designed to be
you have
difficult to do.
advantage. Like getting advantage in that scenario. Like, can I have one free advantage forever? Like at the beginning of every game, I start with an advantage point because I could just break the rest of the game. Like, so
You start with a inspiration dice.
yeah, I start every session with a point of inspiration because like I've earned that or a boon. Actually, that's when you reward boons. We haven't talked about boons because that's in the DMG, but that's when you would reward a boon. Be like, you know what? You get a boon. That's genius. You're willing to accept the fact that you could break the game, go through here, destroy the entire adventure that I've written. And I know as a GM you want to be malleable and whatever, but the GM also is a player too, and they wrote this whole adventure, and you should at least go on the adventure that they wrote.
Like,
But yeah, it's that thing. So it's a new player. I guarantee a new player would break the game with this ability. That was the whole point. We tangented, and now we're at almost 30 minutes. So we're good. But
yeah,
but no,
we got.
that's yeah. It's once again relevant tangents. So that's the Forge Domain Cleric. Obviously, we're big fans of it. It's a hot topic. Heyo. All right. I'm Kalvin.
I was trying to think of how to put smolder in the context of this because I don't know why, but smolder became a word for the last week. Yeah, you look like Ben Stiller's character, like from
Oh,
yes,
Zoolander.
yeah. Because when I mentioned smolder, I thought of Jumanji, where Dwayne The Rock Johnson's character just had the ability to
Give him the
smolder.
smolder. Give him the smolder. Well, no,
Yeah.
it's sorry, it's Magnum. Thank you. It's or Blue Steel.
Dude, I don't fucking.
I
I've
love
never seen,
Zoolander. Zoolander's in my top 10 favorite movies.
never watched it.
So good. You have to watch it.
I
After.
have. Oh, I thought
All
you
right.
said liar. Remember if I did. All right.
I'm Kalvin.
I'm Brandon.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And now you get to listen to the outro song. And that's the outro song. Yeah.